Ches pesia. Cameron Decker Louis Squas. Chin cool whil huilt. Tilint galch uchiskeliuch. Chinas lemti whil yelwasket. Good day, everybody. My name is Cameron Decker, and I make things for Huilt LLC. That means Alive and Well in Salish, and it is a company, a business that my wife and I have started to support integrating Indigenous education into the classroom, to put it simply. I'm from Arlee, and I'm grateful for today to get to present to you this topic, this work that I've been doing in our community, and so I'm happy to get to present and excited at this opportunity to get to tell the story of this artwork that not everybody's seen. This presentation is titled Art, Community, and Place, and I'm going to present about the Ronan School District Murals that I recently completed last year, and up into earlier this year of 2022. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, some of my inspirations and approach to thinking about how you place imagery into a space and what it does to transform a space. This is work that I've been doing sort of inspired by my master's degree in integrated arts and education, by my art history degree from the University of New Mexico, and just from sort of all of my life experiences culminating into creating these really large scale artworks that are for the public. I'm really inspired by photographs, and especially of photographs of place, and especially photographs of past times and things that have really changed, and how I get to sort of look into the past by viewing an image and a historical photograph. And in this project, I dug through thousands and thousands of photographs, and I have to admit is one of my favorite parts of the process, because I learned so much, things that you just sort of can't unsee when you are now in the place. And so I wanted to sort of expose everybody to this photograph just right off the bat. I think it's something that is really hard to unsee. This isn't a terribly old photograph. And it's near where I work. I work at the Missoula Art Museum, where I'm an educator and outreach coordinator, and I work in the classroom of the museum, which is in the basement of the original 1903 library. And I think a lot about time and experience and things that Tatayak and Bitterroot Salish people went through in this space, and how things have changed. And again, when we look at these photos, we think of them as, historical and ancient even, but to view that this is really not very old, is really sort of eye-opening, and again inspires me to want people to see these images. And it's really the root of this project that I did for the Ronan School District. I think of all the dark things that have happened in this place, and on the reservation and off the reservation, but I also think of all the beautiful things that maybe we don't have pictures of, but are certainly a part of culture. And when I get to witness those and sort of put them into that context and see them happen right before my eyes, it's always a really special moment. And so it's those ways that I try to think about history and our contemporary time, how to bridge those two to demonstrate that Indigenous people are still here, and that we're still participating and growing even in our traditions, that these things are still very much alive and well. This here is an image of my youngest son, Steach, and he's in a hide. He's helping here stretch the hide out at the Vanderburg camp a number of years ago. And here you can see, again, this is just how I think about community and the ideals of our community, right? That we hold each other up, we have fun, and we try to come together, for a common purpose. not always the easiest thing to do in life, I know. But those things do happen, it's so beautiful, and that's what I strive for in how I think about how my art can affect people, and does it add to the community and transform the space in a way that's positive for people. And so those things are my motivation. Here he is, he had the time of his life, getting to be sort of the weight in the middle of the hide. And if you could just hear the sounds around this, it would just make you smile too. It was so much laughter and giggling and smiling, and just sort of lots of action and activity, and sort of a stinky baby afterwards. But still, an incredibly beautiful moment that I think about a lot when I'm thinking about engagement and community and healing and those things that we need to do to focus on the positive things in life. I am Dene, a proud member of the Navajo Nation. I am a member of the Many Houses clan. My grandmother, May Knoll, is a fluent speaker of our language. My grandfather, Gerald Knoll, was a member of Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. Both of them worked on our reservation at Job Corps and taught countless students how to cook and how to be mechanics and how to lead a productive, successful life depending on their own skills. Many of those values that they passed on to me, my brother, and my cousins. I think about them when I'm doing this work. They were both strong advocates for tribal education, and they did it through practice, through engagement with their students. They taught so much more than just their subjects. Sure, they taught cooking and they taught mechanics, and they taught them very well. But what they were teaching everybody was really about life, something only amazing grandparents can do. I aspire to be a teacher like them, ones who can make such a lasting impact on people's lives and to make them believe in themselves that they can achieve. So, in recognizing the inspirations for this work, I just have to say to my grandparents, Lem Lem Ch'Ochehet, for all of the things that they did for us to make sure that we were raised to know our identity and to know who we are and where we came from, and the things that we need to fight for to continue on what they learned from their ancestors. And I'm just so grateful to have such a strong family. In this work, I think about all my other family as well, and I want to recognize them in this work because I thought about them heavily as I created these different murals, especially those and how they've influenced me and how they push me to try to make an impact like they do. All my family really went through the Ronan School District throughout their lives, and my grandma Joyce Wagner, she was the longtime superintendent of Lake County Schools and an educator for as long as I've known her. And I've just always been in awe of her tenacity for history and her passion for collecting stories, especially her work surrounding one-room schoolhouses in Montana and in Lake County, and the work that she went into, that she's been working on practically my entire life, is just something that I really admire. And I'm so grateful that she showed me how we can be passionate about history and those things that have come before us. And not only for history, but for bringing us out into the woods and taking us on nature walks and helping us identify flowers and animals, how to cook with those foods, and how to catch frogs, how to fish, how to shoot BB guns, all these things that I think about or that were just formative for me. And those were occurring with those things that she provided for us, along with my grandpa Gary and my grandpa Ted. I think of my dad and the impact that he's made on the Ronan School District. Especially, he was a vice principal of the Ronan Middle School before it transitioned to the new middle school, and he was a big part of getting that school built, where I later got to place a mural. It was a pretty surreal moment for me. I really never thought I could leave my mark in that way. And the things that he taught me too about, again, being in nature, being in the woods, fishing, all the things it takes, and to appreciate being out there. He was a teacher at Ronan High School, and so I had a lot of memories of going to the school with him. Even though I never attended Ronan High School, I always felt like a part of it. When I walk in there, it was a place that felt familiar to me because, while he was doing prep and things like that, me and my brother were playing in the hallways and running around the school and getting to use the gym. And so the school itself was just a really a fun place for me too. It was a place that I wanted to be. And I think it's because I grew up around so many educators and spent time in those schools. So I thought about that a lot as I got to make my mark on this school. And I think about my brother and my mother and how they've really encouraged me as an artist and how they inspire me to do these big things when I really sometimes don't think I can. When I was facing the Ronan High School wall mural for the first time, it was an actual sort of scary moment for me. I didn't think I could do it, and so it was my family who encouraged me through. Uh, and so I'll talk a little bit more about them and their stories and what I was thinking about when I was creating the mural at Ronan High School. And I just wanted to make sure that they were recognized. I couldn't do this work without my better half, my spouse, my wife, my partner, Aspen Decker. She is the muse for so much of this work that we do, just based on her cultural knowledge and her abilities in Salish language. Uh, she's a wealth of sort of knowledge about things around us, and based on learning from her elders, and is really just from here and knows so much. So um, I feel right along with the kids, we learn together from Aspen and get to sort of take part in all of these different projects. We get to learn and practice what we're learning in a way that I think would make all of our ancestors really proud. And she's at the heart of that. So we're just really Chines Lemti for all the work that she does, and sort of for allowing me to collaborate with her with the ways that I think about art and contemporary times. And I'm so grateful that our skills are so complementary, and it's exciting to be able to put material like this together. It's really impossible without her. So I just wanted to recognize her in this. I graduated from the University of New Mexico with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Art History in 2010. It was there that I got to learn not only courses in art history, but studio practices in drawing and ceramics that have really influenced a lot of the work that I do today. Those were the two sparks that made me realize that I wanted to pursue art as a passion and as a career and as a direction in life. And later got my master's degree from the University of Montana in fine arts, in integrated arts and education through the Creative Pulse program. This program I was so grateful for because I was able to take it during the summer, and I was able to continue working. I was working at SKC at the time, and I was working on my first year field project, and I was really interested in community arts and how to sort of work with groups in art. And not something I've really solved yet. It's just something that I've continued on in my work and just keep improving on. These are some photos of my work at the Boys and Girls Club, where I got to every Tuesday and Thursday in Ronan and Polson, respectively. I went and would work on art projects for an hour in the evenings, and I did that for a few years. It was a really rewarding experience, and it allowed me to experiment with ideas and projects, and the kids always really seemed to love it. And so up above, you can see sort of a collaborative image that we compiled based on everybody's drawings. In the bottom left and on the right are pictures from an event that I did at CM Russell in Missoula called a Meet the Artist, and I did a collagraph printmaking activity with family and with over 100 different participants of children and parents together creating. And I just that was a moment where I was really truly inspired, and that I saw that this can be done. It can be done with collaboration and planning and a good idea. And so to see people working sort of intergenerationally across ages to create a common piece, and to again just have that experience together, it was really powerful to me, and I've never forgot it. I like to look back on these photos anytime I get to present, because it reminds me of where I started and It brings back those really initial inspirations that I had in how I came to making the art and the projects that I do now. And so in my master's in the Creative Pulse program, I was in the second year. My thesis project, I was given a lot of free range to pick what it was that I wanted to do, and I wanted to do something big. I wanted to do that at the end. My first year project was sort of three small little endeavors in working with kids, developing curriculum, learning how to do sculpture, and learning how to at least to take some dance classes, because a lot we had to do a lot of movement. And I was so uncomfortable with it that I felt like maybe some lessons in dance along with my wife was really fun to get to sort of break myself out of my comfort zone. And so I wanted to be a better professional, a better artist, and just conquer some personal fears. Um, and and so I wanted to go big with this project, and I really didn't know how. But it wasn't until I saw this wall at Riverside Park while we were playing with our kids that I realized I wanted to do a really large public art piece. I had gotten to travel to Spain, and I got to see the work of Antonin Gaudi and his mosaics that were all over Barcelona, and also in Tunisia, where I got to go see some sort of ancient Roman mosaics. And it was something that really inspired me when I first saw them. So uh, as I was in the park and we were playing with our kids, I noticed this bathroom that really had been in my life, my entire life. Riverside Park was somewhere I had always gone as a child. It's near my grandparents' house, and when both my grandparents lived in Polson, it was near my house or near their houses, so it was somewhere we went often. I had a lot of special memories there, picnics and playing and swimming, and the fireworks show, and just any events that ever happened there. It was something that was always special to me as a kid, and so I had just really seen it. I don't know how to describe, but it just stuck out in my mind that that's where that belonged. And initially, I wanted to paint or do some artwork on the top left side of the building here, in the picture in the top left on this sort of blank wall on the side. But we ended up uh, working on the larger wall when I went to the Parks and Recreation, and I talked to um, Pat Nolan at the time. I don't know if he's still there, but he's like, "What do you think about doing the larger wall in the back?" And so that started off this huge project. I said yes. I didn't know if I could do that. That actually really terrified me in the moment, but I said yes, and I was like, "Let's go for it." So so I wanted experience in fundraising and trying to find money, and I came up with sort of all these different, like, really not well thought out ideas on how to raise enough money. I had no idea how much this stuff cost. I'd never made tiles. I'd never made a mosaic, and so I really had to start kind of at the bottom and from scratch to think about how this all works. And it was diving into my literature review and reading about public art and versus sort of art in public that I got a lot of inspiration. Uh, and that gave me the courage once I had the idea to really reach out. And so I started first by reaching out to Matt Holmes at Polson High School, and he was such an amazing person to work with in this project, and I really couldn't have completed it without him. He did, I say, the majority of the work, doing the arranging the tiles and sort of helping and coming up with this beautiful composition along with his students. The work he did, having them create tiles in their classroom, really helped put this project pushed it over the finish line, and we created a really successful piece that I'll show you here in just a moment. Uh, but I started there, and it was collaborating. It was putting sort of my project in the hands of others that felt really good. I felt like I couldn't do public art without, you know, giving up that that power of the project to open it up to many hands in the community is something I was really adamant about. And so he was a great start, and he started and believed in me before I had the funds, which I've never I've always appreciated him for. I think he believed in the project too. And so once we had collaborated with his class and had some sort of conversations about what would imagery about this park and how would we reflect this place in our art piece. We developed some sort of test images and mock-ups, and ultimately we completed this triptych large scale tile mosaic that was made by students in Matt Holmes High School art classes. It was made by students staying in at lunch and choosing to create some tiles. And he said he was not only working on them in his class, but catching students in the hall who were really interested in that kind of stuff, and they participated, which I always thought was just amazing. Uh, there were students from Upward Bound who I was working with at a summer camp. There were students from Boys and Girls Club who, when I was volunteering for Boys and Girls Club and bringing them to SKC weekly for art projects, they were making tiles for this. Really, we were all kind of unsure about how it was going to look. It was just that we had to take those steps forward to make, and I learned a lot from that. That sometimes we just don't know what the end looks like, and that shouldn't keep us from moving forward. And you know what? Most of the time, and I'll kind of show this in maybe the later process, but I always hit a point in the art making where I'm really terrified that I don't know how it's going to look. That usually leads to being like, oh, this doesn't look great. And usually now I know that I've trained my brain to say, oh, I've hit that stage where I don't like it. I don't know how it's looking. And that's when I know that I'm about halfway through. I need to just step over that barrier and keep making, and trust in the process. And it turns out every time. So far, I feel pretty good about that part of the process. I know when I hit that, as much as frustrating as it is, I know that I'm about to go somewhere. So this project really, I think, just taught me so much. I felt like it was really worthy of a master's thesis. I came out of it with some perspective that I didn't have before, and I feel really empowered to do large-scale projects. And I just can't thank Matt Holmes enough. If he's joining this or listening in today, and I haven't got to talk to you in a while, thank you for all your work with this project. It's still up. It's looking good. It looks like the day we installed it, and so that's really exciting. I hope it's here for a really long time. It should last. It's in a great spot. It was funded by the Greater Polson Community Foundation. This is ultimately how we ended up getting the funds for this project. And I was able to pay Matt for all of his time and effort and work into installing and building this project. I learned a lot in this process. First thing, I should measure things with a ruler or a tape measure. I'll never forget when I gave Matt the dimensions, but they were my estimated dimensions. I don't know why I didn't measure them. I'm not, again, I had a lot to learn. And the other thing is to give it a title. I really didn't give it a title. We kind of just called it the Riverside Tile Mosaic. And I've had people come up to me sort of suggesting titles, and I've loved all of them. But I really never conceived of a title for this piece. I didn't want to give it the title because it wasn't all mine, and I think it just sort of is what it is. It has its own presence in the park. My favorite thing that I learned from this process is that mosaics are different from when you're standing back and when you're looking up close. And I think that's a big metaphor for communities, that you can have your image as a community from one way, but when you look close, you can get to really know it and see the personality. And so that's what I really enjoyed about watching students make their tiles, and what really made this project unique versus other tile mosaics. The mosaics that I had looked into, colored tiles were just way out of my range and budget, and were unaffordable, and honestly just really difficult to get a hold of. And most mosaic artists would purchase these pre-made tiles and break them and then arrange them into shapes. But what we did uniquely is we made them like cookies. We rolled out slabs of clay, and students were able to take paper clip tools and cut through the clay and make shapes that were important to them. And then I did the coloring. And so it was sort of this collaborative process again, where when you get up close and look, you'll start to see interesting shapes and forms that you wouldn't expect in the sky and in the water and in the in the mountains, you might find things like my favorite one is a fidget spinner. Those were just sort of the hype at the time and the fad of the time. And there is one in there. It reflects the time that we made it. My daughter likes to look for her shark tooth that she made, which we put in the water. I also added some tiles with my children's name at that time. So going back and looking at those just is really special and takes me back to some really good memories. Um, it took a long time to do this project. I failed a lot along the way in the way that I perceive it. It took about double the time that I'd expected, and those are just some of the things that I embrace now as in part of the process that it's worth taking the time to get a good product and to have a good finished product, and not to rush things. And so I think we've left this park with a lasting mural that actually inspired a mural to be painted on the other side of the park at the Flathead Lakers building, which now when you come into Polson from the bridge, you get to sort of be greeted by these two really colorful, big public art pieces that I'm just so inspired to want to make more. Another special thing about this mural that I learned is that, and it was something I had really wrestled with, was how do you finish it and how can we complete this? I was doing this project in collaboration with the Polson Parks and Recreation, and they had suggested the larger wall to me because they were working on a dedication to Officer William Cleveland, who had passed away from cancer, and so they asked me to somehow connect the mural to the memorial bench and concrete platform that they had constructed there. Um, and so that was difficult because I didn't know William Cleveland, and so my first instinct was to reach out to his family and get to know him a little bit more. Uh, I learned a lot about him, and especially in reading on newspapers and things like that, articles about him. But ultimately, I came up with an idea because I had seen the fidget spinner tile and the shark tooth and other tiles like that where we hid objects in there. I thought that we could represent him and his badge and this service that he was so well known for. And so I was able to work with the Polson Police Department and create a copy of his badge from his original badge out of clay. And so I went to the police department and they allowed me to take his badge and press it into the clay, and I was able to clean it off. And I made a copy. I failed once. I had to go back. That was just, what can you do? I had to go back because my clay got ruined. So I made another impression and ultimately got a successful tile of his badge with his initials on it and his number. And I invited his family, his wife and his children, to come and add the final tile to the mural. And it was just, for me, it was a beautiful moment. And I I think the family enjoyed it and they expressed so. And I just was so grateful that we got to make sort of a meaningful final action onto this mural that for me always really felt complete after that. And so that's driven me to like just that big question. And I don't really know the answer, but it's just how do you complete one of these in a meaningful way? Something that isn't just putting it up and walking away. And so we had a big unveiling, and that was just a really great day. And so I continued working. I got my master's degree. I finished my project, and I was just sort of on to new things with all of this inspiration and sort of education from this process that I've really never put down. It's something that I feel like I really just scratched the surface. I have a lot to do. It feels really special to sort of find a life's work that I just know I can't get it all done in the time that I have, and so it really inspires me to work hard. And my ultimate goal is to have a mural in every town on our reservation, that I get to work with the community, or that I get to put up something that represents the community. And so here I was working at Salish Kootenai College. I was the head of the fine arts department. I was faculty. I started as an adjunct in 2011. And I left in 2021, at the end of 2021. This is an image from sort of the leftovers of our preview day, SKC preview day recruiting event. And I went all out for this event. I really was feeling like I could do anything after my master's project, and I felt like I just had felt really creative and ambitious to do big things as much as I could. And so I just sort of looking around our reservation and looking at a lot of imagery and anything that's, you know, like made by folks from the community. And it's just, we just don't have a lot of big images, big murals. And I want to contribute to that and make more. So, but I also want to involve people's hands. So in this recruiting event, I wanted people to learn about Chief Charlo. And so I used his image and I worked on it in Photoshop, and I was able to cut it down to a couple colors and have a reference photograph. And I projected it onto a really large canvas, and I traced it out, much like a coloring book. And I put a pedestal next to it with two big cups of paint. And a paintbrush, and invited anybody that came through the halls to paint on this, and to trust them to look at the references and do their best job. And so we had hundreds of kids come through the art building that day, high school kids who were interested in college, and I wanted them to leave learning about our school mascot, the bison, and I wanted them to learn about some of the history of how Salish and Kootenai people important Salish and Kootenai people and how we live here. We also did some other just sort of crazy things just to show that that art can be so much fun, and art and design can be so much fun. So we had an inflatable drawing room that we had built with markers that students could crawl into and draw on. We were spray painting bison hooves on a car that one of the faculty members donated to us. I'll never forget that. And we had this interactive weaving wall, and people were able to leave their bison prints with these sort of hoof rollers that I made. That doesn't sound like anything that makes sense, but it was cool. But ultimately, it was these large Chief Charlo murals that kind of led me to the Ronan School District Mural Project. And it was Linda Ferris who came through, and I believe she's from the Ronan Indian Education Committee, and she told me, she said, we need this in our schools. And I just I'll never forget that moment. It was like, yeah, we do, let's do this, you can have these, you know. I left these up for a long time. I just really enjoyed coming through the hallway, and you'd see a student, you know, killing time between classes, picking up the paintbrush and painting. Students telling me that that taught them that they could go bigger, that they didn't know you could paint that big, and to see that process. So I felt really honored that I was able to kind of pull that out of people with really very little instruction. And so again, I think about that a lot. How do I carry that into my work? So anyways, Linda Ferris really got the ball rolling on commissioning me to paint murals for the Ronan School District. So I'll read to you what I wrote to Brett Myers, who was putting together an article in the yearbook, a student who had reached out to me. And it was really the first opportunity I got to talk about the murals. It was such a fast process, especially painting this large one here at the entryway to Ronan High School. That was the first one I tackled because it was the only one that was outside, and it was like in October that I started, and it was getting into November. I completed it in mid-November, and it was really cold. I remember shaking while I was painting, and having to do a lot of research on how do you paint in the cold, something I think I really mastered and felt pretty good about afterwards. But I'm going to read to you this letter that I wrote to Brett. I'd never been interviewed for a yearbook article before, so it was a pretty big moment for me. This is my first large painted mural. This opportunity given to me by the Ronan Indian Education Committee and approved by both the Salish, Kalispel, and Kootenai Culture Committees has been the greatest honor of my artistic life. It's allowed me to grow in profound ways as a creative person. Chines Lemti. I worked at Salish Kootenai College and taught courses in studio arts, art history, and portfolio, among other classes, from 2011 to 2021. I was the Fine Arts Department Chair from 2018 to 2021. I now work as Educator and Outreach Coordinator at the Missoula Art Museum, and I'm co-owner of a consulting business that I started with my wife, Aspen Decker, called Huhwilt LLC. I received my Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Art History at the University of New Mexico, and I received my Master's of Fine Arts in Integrated Arts and Education at the University of Montana. I am a painter, printmaker, digital illustrator, and ceramic artist. The mural at Ronan High School is the first of 4 murals for the Ronan School District. I grew up in Ronan and spent a lot of time away also. I have witnessed many changes, and other things have stayed mostly the same. The brick wall leading to the entrance of the high school is one of the things that has remained the same in my lifetime. Anytime I walk up to the high school entrance, I hear the basketball games roaring and can feel my excitement to enter the gym. So many of my early cherished memories happened there, and I can still hardly believe I was given the chance to leave my mark. My parents, Mark Decker and Sharon Knoll, both met at Ronan High School, track and cross-country stars in their time. My brother would later compete against their running times while he was at Ronan Middle School. My dad was vice principal of the original Ronan Middle School and helped to build the new one. My grandma Joyce Wagner taught at all the Ronan schools and at some point, and later became superintendent of schools for Lake County. I always looked up to my family's contributions to Ronan School District. The brick wall had sat in relatively the same condition since they were crossing in front of it on their way to classes and to teach. To most, this wall was insignificant, but in the process of painting it and listening to students go to and from class, in and out of the building as regularly as waves on the lake, I felt the history this wall was witness to. I attended Pablo Elementary in kindergarten, K. William Harvey in 2nd grade, and Ronan Middle School in 7th grade. The old school with an emergency exit slide was still standing until I left in 7th grade. I wanted the murals to be something new for the school and to make an impact visually. I also wanted to educate students about the past by connecting them with images of our CSKT ancestors. I was asked to paint an image of 3 important CSKT chiefs, Custada, Alexander, and Charlo, given the school's team name. The issue of Native American mascots has been a nationally debated issue and has been one at Ronan High School too. So I did not take painting the image of these important CSKT leaders lightly. I wanted to paint them using images that were recognizable to the community and put a real face and name to the chiefs. I wanted to avoid painting a landscape that distracted or looked like what people might expect a Montana landscape painting to look like. So I picked bright, vibrant colors because it was a dark space. I sketched out the wall with chalk, and the bricks inspired me to not paint a perfect rectangle. Once I primed and painted the first layer of color on, I then added the mountain silhouettes. The wall is on a north-south orientation, and I wanted to align the 3 chiefs in relation to where they are from, relatively, but mainly for Custada and Charlo. Custada is on the north, and there's a silhouette of Chief Cliff behind him. Alexander is in the middle, and the Sheep's Head Mountain is behind him. And behind Chief Charlo is the dancing boy with the heart. These leaders are ones we can look to when we need guidance to move forward in the future in a good way. CSKT people have been stewards of this land in place for thousands of years. These Illumichums once led CSKT people through immensely hard, bleak, and devastating times. We are here because of their bravery, wisdom, and resilience. Our tribal students coming to school are the next ones to lead our tribes, and I want the painting to feed their spirit and welcome them to school in a powerful way. There was a time where an acknowledgement of the CSKT land that Ronan School District sits on would have been unthinkable, in times not so long ago. But times are changing, and Ronan School District was proud to display the acknowledgement prominently. I hope this mural and what it represents gives hope to those who did not feel welcome in their time at Ronan High School or Ronan School District, and they see that their struggle did not come without progress. I hope it gives voice to the past, and I hope that students and visitors feel pride when they see it, no matter who they are. What these leaders fought for and the battles they waged still continue today in many ways. Our greatest tool as tribal people to fight for our rights as Indigenous people is education. I want to acknowledge so many that made this possible. I'd like to say lamlamch to the Ronan Indian Education Committee and the Salish, Kalispel, and Kootenai Culture Committees. Without their support and funding, this project would not have been possible. I thank the Ronan School District for welcoming these murals and for supporting the project. Lemlumch to my wife, Milmiltef Aspendecker, who gave me endless encouragement, support, and acknowledgement to complete this work. Lemlumch to Eva Green, who helped me believe I could complete this project and that I was the right person for it. And Lemlumch to Linda Ferris for having the vision and for believing in the impact it could make. And finally, Lemlumch to the students of Ronan School District. I enjoyed so many of the comments from students passing by. The comments, the kindness and excitement the students expressed during the process was the most satisfying part of this experience. Probably the best interaction I had after that too was at a camp recently this summer in 2022 at the Vanderburg camp. I had a student come up to me, a young boy, and he came up to me and he said something I never thought I'd hear in my lifetime. He said, "I wrote a paper about you." It brings tears to my eyes to think about it. It was so powerful. And he's like, "Are you painted the murals at Ronan High School?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he ran and told his friend, and he's like, "That's the guy. That's the guy that painted that." And I felt like a celebrity. It was a big moment for me. That made all the hard work really feel just like it paid off, you know. And I got to the people that I wanted to get to. And I get compliments, and I get you know, some great just stories about it as I run into people, and I'm just so grateful that people are excited to see them. And so these are some of the pictures I was taking as I was trying to think about, again, where does the mural go, and what's the space look like, and I actually brought a ruler this time, so I measured things. And this was kind of an interesting wall because it was broken up by like little slats of wood, and like pieces of molding or whatever you call that. And so when I took the measurements, a piece of plywood would fit sort of right in between them perfectly. And so that's what I started there. I really didn't know what I was going to paint there. I was given a lot of freedom by all the different Ronan Indian Ed coordinators who, again, sort of, I felt like put a lot of trust in me to create these images for their school, and I really appreciated that. I wanted to keep it somewhat consistent with some of the imagery that they might have been seeing at the high school. And again, it's sort of, they had the big Chiefs logo, and there were schools that come in, or you know, they come in and play games there, I think more than they do at the high school in the older gym. And so I wanted to keep sort of a consistent color palette, and people loved the images so much that it really inspired me to keep digging and looking for more images that maybe people haven't seen, and I use that as source material for creating the art pieces that I did. I bought I bought 5 pieces of plywood, and I divided up the space for them to sort of stretch out. So they're really more like 5 individual paintings, but I linked them all through a line that you'll see here in the examples. So the big challenge here is always in Montana, and it's the thing. I guess if it's number one besides measure, it's that Montana weather is so hard to work in. And so at this point, it was sort of the dead of winter after I'd completed my mural in Ronan in November, and I started this work. And I painted it in my shed, and had to imagine this series of images and painting that would stretch over 30 feet. And I was painting it in a space that was hardly as big as the plywood. And so I'm grateful for the space that I have to paint, but it was really hard to paint a large scale mural in such a tiny space. But I was able to overcome that, and you know, all the freezing nights, and the repaints, and the everything that I went through to make it into something. I'm really satisfied by the end product, and I get, again, I've had people come up to me and say, like, you my favorite has been so far that it's like you painted my grandpa, and I'm just so grateful that you did. And you know, to be able to stand next to an image of your people, of your family, of your grandpa is just you know, that's one of those interactions with the artwork that is exactly what I wanted, and I didn't even know I wanted that. It's just what makes it so powerful. And you know, it was in the process that I realized that maybe these are some of the largest images of Salish and Kootenai people that have ever been painted on our reservation. I got to look into that art history, but I think maybe I was able to do that and achieve something there. When we unveiled the mural at the Ronan at the high school, I was just so, I heard people say, that's our family, let's go take a picture. And to see a group of people around this, you know, this large scale historical photo that's painted is just something I cherish. It's really what moves me to continue this work. And so I wanted students to be able to come through and, you know, stand next to them and pose too. So in the criteria of looking for photos, I dug through thousands, and I wanted as best as I could to spread out representation of Bitterroot Salish, Pend Oreille, and Kootenai people. It was difficult because I picked 5 as the panels, and that's really what fit naturally in the space. And so, it's not perfect. And I wasn't able to involve students in this process, which is sort of my biggest regret about it, is that I painted this and I put it in the space. Um, but I think that people have enjoyed it, and that's really what I can ask. And so you can see I kind of united all the images by painting a similar background that kind of continues from one to the other, and then I put this big glowing orange outline around all the figures, and it just makes them pop and glow. Uh, it's what I want students to be greeted by when they're walking through the hallways. When I mentioned like feeding their spirit and welcoming them, looking at these, our ancestors who were just so stylish and so proud, and who have set up things for us to continue, and that I hope it reminds us that we can continue these traditions as well. The space at Pablo Elementary School is quite a bit smaller, and so I painted one image on a plywood the same size as the ones I did for Ronan Middle School. And I was asked to, create an image of something that, united all the students. And I really thought about horse culture in our native cultures, but also in our non-tribal cultures. And, to be greeted by this horse and this smiling Salish woman as you enter school was just part of that, me following the theme of welcoming these students to school in a good way. And so she glows with her gold paint. And I really loved the way that she turned out in this painting. The last mural that I painted was at K. William Harvey, and it was a space right at the entryway. It was one of my favorite ones when it turned out. It was really special because I got to paint it with my former student Joshua Crowdy, who's from Ronan, and was a passionate student of mine in the fine arts program. And so I asked him to come help me that day, and we were able to work together and bounce ideas off each other. And again, it just felt really good to like hand the brush over to somebody else, and to co-create this piece as much as I possibly could. We painted it in a really short time. We did it in one day. This is where I felt like I had my plan. I was completely prepared. I'd learned from all the other 3 murals that I worked on. And then I got there and I kind of threw my plan out the window and started to freestyle a bit. I just, it's just how that goes. I think I always read, or one of my favorite quotes is, I think, from Kurt Vonnegut, and it talks about your your writing's never good until you cut your best line. And I always think about that when I'm really hanging on to an idea that just doesn't feel right. So I felt like cutting my idea, and I altered it a bit, and it turned out great. I was also able to take advice from passerbys. Mr. Barnaby Smith from the art teacher at K. William Harvey, and he comes by and he's like, maybe you should sneak some animals in there. Well, how could you do that? And that prompt just set me off, and it was so fun to start putting animals in the sky, something I hadn't planned to do. Or we put animals in the dress of the figures and in the ground, and there's some, I don't even remember how many animals we put in there, but I'm gonna go add some more over time just to keep everybody on their toes. It was such a great suggestion, and it really made the mural turn into something that I just think everybody loves. I also put a portrait of my daughter Manip digging bitterroot. It's from a photograph I took of her, and she's sort of across from a photograph that I used of, actually, it's a Colville Salish woman who's also digging bitterroot. And to see them both there, sort of then and now, was something I wanted to represent, and I wanted to let children see children doing these things too, which was I hope came across and inspires other children to participate in culture. But otherwise, I've just gotten great compliments and how engaging the mural is, and to see all the feedback that I got. I was able to go and talk to the students about my project and the process, and that was just again, I felt so special getting to go to the classrooms, and the kids had so many questions for me, and I just wanted them to all believe that like, I went to this school and I came back and made a mark, and you will too, and I know it. So it was a really beautiful day, and it completed a really big project in my life that I can't wait to do more of. And so now it's hard not to see a wall and want to paint it. Like I said, I want to paint the entire reservation. I want something in every town. I don't know what it is about blank walls. They're so ugly. We can do better. They look better with paintings. And so I think about places that are special to me and the walls that I notice. These I'm sort of always keeping tabs on, and just can't wait. Just be on the lookout. They're going to be painted, in the next 30 years. So that's exciting to me. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a little bit more about sort of the background history of these murals and how they came to be. Please feel free to reach out to me at camdecker1@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments. Lemlem Chpesia.